On today's episode of Bears Talk, we are going to bring you a complete and total preview of the Chicago Bears free agency plan, which kicks off very soon. We made it, Bears fans. Free agency is right around the corner, and we need to talk about it. We're going to have Locked On Bears host Lauren Cox on to give us his breakdown of what he expects Ryan Poles to do, and we're going to cover it from all angles. Come hang out and have some Bears talk.
We're going to be an effort-based team.
Darnell being Darnell.
Love playing football.
Ready to open this thing up. Let them know that we're coming.
Before we bring Lauren into the show, Bears Talkers, you know the deal. You have to hit that subscribe button. Help us continue growing this show. It's been so fun reading all of your comments, interacting with all of you Chicago Bears fans every time we post a video. I can feel the movement. I know you can feel the movement, but there's a lot of you watching who have not subscribed. We want to hit 5,000, then 10,000 subscribers, and then continue growing from there. And we can only do it if you hit that subscribe button wherever it is at the bottom of this screen. Lauren Cox is going to hop on in a second. We're going to talk all things Chicago Bears free agency. I am super excited about the next few days and what it means for the Bears. We are on the precipice of a complete and total change in culture and the optics around this team. The Bears are going to go from the NFL doormat to the darlings of the 2023 season. All these transactions are going to have preseason projections with the Bears winning a lot of games. If Aaron Rodgers leaves the NFC North, Justin Fields could realistically be the best quarterback in the division in 2023, and he's going to have a much more talented roster around him. So, of course, that means the Chicago Bears are this close to actually being relevant and back. And it all starts with free agency. So let's bring Lauren Cox in and have a talk about it. Let's welcome in Lauren Cox from Locked On Bears to the Bears Talk podcast. Lauren, welcome back. You've been a regular contributor here on Bears Talk. And we're finally arriving, Lauren. We're finally getting to the point that all Bears fans have been waiting for. Free agency is right around the corner. You could see it. There's the light at the end of the tunnel, all the noise, all the nonsense, everything Bears fans have had to put up with since the end of the season with all the Justin Fields crazy talk at the number one pick. It's finally coming to an end. Are you ready, Lauren? Are you ready to actually start talking about the new faces, the hope that they'll bring to Chicago, and of course, the evaluation of the job that Ryan Poles did? Are you ready for it all?
It's kind of snuck up on us a little bit, right? Because we've been talking about, you mentioned the Justin Fields stuff and all the talk about what they're going to do with the number one overall pick. And I kind of looked up and it's like, oh, that starts Monday. Like we're here. We made it. This is great. I love the offseason moving this fast.
And for those of you out there in Bears Talk Nation, all you Bears talkers who are counting down till March 15th, which is the date that you'll see is the official start of the new league year, on March 13th, the NFL opens the 2-day negotiation period where agents can meet with teams and essentially agree to the parameters of a deal that can't be formally signed until March 15th, but turn those notifications on Twitter on for Adam Schefter and Ian Rappaport and your favorite NFL insiders, because these deals are going to come at a fast and furious pace starting around 4 p.m. on Monday afternoon, which I don't know why the NFL does this. I mean, just let these guys sign. I don't get it. Maybe it's because they can go through a physical or do a little bit more background checks before the NFL teams commit big time money over many years to these guys, but it seems odd. I mean, maybe it's just to spread out free agency for a whole week, but Lauren, let's kind of dive into.
To correct you, tampering starts at noon Eastern on Monday.
It's fantastic. It's sooner. It's even sooner, Bears fans. I was giving the NFL the benefit of the doubt, like a real 48 hours. So it's actually noon on Monday. That's even better. Christmas comes earlier. And speaking of Christmas or whatever holiday you Bears talkers celebrate where you get a gift, it's a birthday. We'll go with birthday. Lauren, what to you will be the perfect first week of free agency? I don't care about the second wave where yes, important players are added and signed, top reserves, even some quality starters can be added in the second wave of free agency, but the big ticket names, the top of every ranking of every position, they're going to be gone essentially by March 15th. So over these once free agency kicks off, those first few days, what are you hoping for from Ryan Poles? What, in your opinion, would be a job well done? What does he have to get off the checklist?
He needs to get somebody who's some kind of like difference maker, a playmaker of some sort at their position. Because I think, like comparatively, I think the Bears do need to get some good offensive linemen, but offensive linemen individually aren't the big difference makers. You can wait a little bit and get away with getting a lesser offensive lineman. I think it's a little bit less important. Certainly I would take one at the beginning, but like for me, it's a guy like Javon Hargrave that you feel like comes in on your defensive line and offers you difference making pass rushing ability on the interior. Not a guy that you're hoping he has a better year this year, hoping he takes his game to the next level once you sign him to this deal, but a guy that you've seen him perform at a high level for multiple seasons. You're going to get exactly what you pay for. You're not waiting for him to get into his prime or exceed expectations. Just set expectations, get there and reach that point. That more of that like as close to a sure thing type player as you could get in the free agent market. And that he, to me, is kind of the main one in terms of free agent pass rushers. You start to add questions, even, top edge rushers like Marcus Davenport or Yannick Ngakoue, as far as younger guys, like I think those are difference maker type players. I'd like to see Ryan Poles come away with one out of this group, but there's something about Hargrave that feels so much more just proven and sure thing, even if he's a little bit on the older side. Just get somebody who can do some real damage up front. That to me feels like priority number one.
Is it Hargrave or bust for you? What if they end up coming away with Draymond Jones, who is really starting to bubble up here? If you asked any NFL fan who needs an interior defender, a fan of any team that needs an interior defender, even 2-3 weeks ago, it was Daron Payne. He obviously gets franchised. Javon Hargrave is the next name that gets brought up. Draymond Jones isn't really a guy that's brought up all that often outside of the inner NFL circle, especially if you follow it closely on Twitter. Now there's these rumblings that he could end up being the top of the market guy, the most hotly pursued interior defender. Obviously, he's younger. What is he, like 26 years old? They're viewing him as an ascending talent. If Ryan Poles prioritizes him over Javon Hargrave, are you disappointed? Are you cautiously optimistic? How would you react to that decision?
Yeah, I guess it depends because there's more of these rumors of like Draymond Jones getting like significant money. I mean, $10 plus $15 million a year type money.
I think that's low. I'm hearing even more than that.
For a guy who has in his career 22 sacks in 4 seasons, 6.5, 5.5, 6.5 the last 3 years, which is nothing to scoff at, but that's not $20 million a year money. Like that's kind of what I was hinting at before. Like I don't want the guy who we're signing Draymond Jones because we think he's going to take his game to another level in Chicago. I mean, I feel like he's had Von Miller on the outside. He's had Bradley Chubb on the outside, and that's helped him have the production he's had in Denver. But he doesn't stand out to me as a guy who I feel like make him the guy, the number one pass rusher, and expect him to take some big step forward. Maybe you get the same 6.5, 5.5 sack guy, and that would be nice to have, but not at the kind of numbers that we're seeing floated out there for him. I mean, same with Zach Allen from the Arizona Cardinals. Like he's had JJ Watt and Chandler Jones and really good pass rushers that have helped them be productive. But like, man, I'm not ready to pay those guys number one pass rusher money to be on the interior of Chicago.
And you know what else is crazy? I'm looking at some Pro Football Focus numbers here. In 2022, Draymond Jones' season grade on 715 snaps from Pro Football Focus was a 51.8. Now, Lauren, you spent a long time working with Pro Football Focus. That is he ranked 95th out of 126 graded interior defenders. I mean, we're talking about a guy who's in essentially like the bottom half, almost the bottom third of interior defensive linemen being pushed to the front of the line of potential free agents. Now, Pro Football Focus grades, again, you could vouch for this. It's the beauty's in the eye of the beholder with those analytics. Sometimes, one person's trash is another person's treasure. I could probably come up with a lot of these cliches, right? But the Bears, I wouldn't be surprised if they prioritize youth over established production, because the Chicago Bears are not a year or two away, probably, from contending for a Super Bowl. Crazier things have happened, of course. We've seen the Cincinnati Bengals become a Super Bowl contender in just a year or two after drafting Joe Burrow. So it's not out of the realm of absolute possibility. But Javon Hargrave at 32 when the Bears are ready to compete versus Draymond Jones at 28 when the Bears are ready to compete certainly seems like a better strategy or philosophy. But Lauren, what I'd like to do now is transition to the other side of the ball, because I think what Bears fans and analysts are expecting is the Chicago Bears are going to hit the offensive and defensive lines hard and heavy, fast and furious pace early in free agency. So the interior defensive line, I agree with you, Lauren. It's kind of like Hargrave or Draymond Jones. They're the two big fish. Ryan Poles will probably catch one of them. On the offensive line, we're going to probably see the offensive tackle be the priority, right tackle, even the left tackle. And the big names are Orlando Brown, Mike McGlinchey, Jawan Taylor, and Caleb McGarry. Three of them are right tackles, Orlando Brown being the left tackle, who can also play right tackle. What is a win for you, Lauren? What is the offensive line strategy and the signing that is a win for you? Because I know what you said earlier was, you can kind of wait on offensive linemen. I respectfully disagree, Lauren. These guys are going to be gone on the first day. All of them are going to be gone on the first day. Maybe not where you hear a deal is agreed to, but they're going to be deep into finalizing deals by the time we wake up on March 14th. So what for you is a win? Who is the preferred right tackle? Do you want Orlando Brown as a left tackle? What's the best bet for the Bears?
Yeah, I think the reason why I hesitate there is because, I don't want to be the team that gives Orlando Brown $22 million a year or whatever that number ends up looking like for him. I don't believe that one individual offensive lineman, even the best left, even if you think, which I don't think he is the best left tackle in the NFL, but even if he was the best left tackle in the NFL, adding one really good offensive lineman to your offensive line does not necessarily make the other four guys better, right? It's about having five really good players across the board. Maybe you could argue that adding a better center can make the other guys better if the protections are better. But when we're talking about offensive tackles, right? And plus, I don't think Orlando Brown is even that good. A lot of Chiefs fans talk about all the different times they had to chip to help him in Kansas City and how a lot of their scheme was not, it wasn't just like put Orlando Brown on an island, we don't have to worry about it. It was like that was a part of their offense, was helping him and shifting protections that way and kind of trying to make that work with him. And I'm not going to pay $20 million for a player of that category. So I'm not necessarily in a hurry to just bid on the guy that I think might be the number one guy on the market. Now, that being said, I think Mike McGlinchey is the ideal fit in terms of all the top four guys that you said there. And I wouldn't be disappointed anyway if the Bears, you have to overspend a little bit in free agency. You're going to spend a lot of money at these positions. And I feel like McGlinchey is the guy that I like the most. I feel like McGarry can be a little bit too much of a liability in the passing game, even if he's a better run scheme fit. Whereas like a guy like Jawan Taylor in Jacksonville, I feel like he can pass protect really well and hold up that edge, but he's not a great scheme fit in the running game. It doesn't move that well and doesn't get guys off the line of scrimmage very well. And that doesn't feel like a Ryan Poles, Matt Eberflus, Luke Getsy style of right tackle as much to me. And McGarry's kind of a one-year wonder right now coming out of Atlanta. So I'm okay with paying up if it's somebody like McGlinchey that feels more proven, more solid, more of a better fit, but I'm not spending big money on Orlando Brown and kind of hesitant on the likes of McGarry or Taylor.
Honestly, Lauren, I'm not worried about how much they decide to spend on any of these guys. And there's a major reason why. You have one of your starting offensive tackles, whether he's a left tackle or right tackle, in Braxton Jones, for the next 3 years at the cheapest possible contract for a starting offensive tackle. He was a day 3 draft pick who the Bears have control over for at least the next 2 seasons before he could actually want a bigger deal. At the very maximum, the next 3 seasons before he would be ready to test free agency at essentially the lowest contract that you could possibly pay an offensive lineman. So even if you have to overpay $18, $19 million a year for one of these right tackles, or even Orlando Brown could be over $20 million a year, when you weigh it out between your starting 2 tackles, you end up having almost an under market value distribution to your starting offensive tackles. It's almost like the perfect storm for the Chicago Bears to push all their chips in on one of these free agents, because by the time they're ready to sign Braxton Jones to a big contract extension, if he develops and evolves into a guy that warrants it, the Mike McGlinchey or maybe Caleb McGarry or Orlando Brown, if that's the guys they choose to sign, they might be getting walking papers by then. The only player that I think could be a really logical target for a long-term solution at right tackle is Javon Taylor. I didn't realize how young he was. He has started 68 games, including playoffs in the NFL. I think he just turned 24, 25 years old. So he's the kind of player. He's as young as some of the rookies coming into the league this year because of the COVID season. He's the same age as a lot of these guys coming into the draft. And you have a player at 68 games of starting experience. Again, you go back to the Pro Football Focus analytics, and Javon Taylor has gotten steadily better every single year. He's not going to be an all-pro, or he hasn't been an all-pro, but by the time he hits that 27, 28-year-old season, he very well may be. He may develop into that. He's a still developing player. So it wouldn't surprise me if Ryan Poles, again, targets that kind of guy who he knows is going to continue aging like fine wine for when Justin Fields has the weapons and the team built around him where they can make that 2-year run at a legitimate Super Bowl run. That's why Draymond Jones, Javon Taylor, those guys are the ones to watch, even though they might not be the top of the market names. And Ryan Poles might have to pay them top of the market contracts. Lauren, Bears fans really are obviously going to be interested in who's going to be making plays for this team at wide receiver, maybe even at running back. Let's start with the wide receivers, the pass catchers, who Justin Fields is going to throw the ball to. We know that this group of free agents is underwhelming, I think, putting it politely. Even the crop of potential first-round wide receivers doesn't inspire a lot of excitement or juice about the Garrett Wilsons or Chris Olaves or these guys that have come out in recent years. There's some good prospects, but not great prospects. So it's almost like the Bears may have just missed that window to land a big-time free agent or rookie draft pick. But it doesn't mean there are no free agents that the Bears can essentially have their choice because of all the money they have under the cap. Is there any wide receiver or two that you think, again, would be viewed as a win if the Bears sign him? Probably not on day one of free agency, but over the first couple of days of free agency, who's the wide receiver that's a win, in your opinion?
Yeah, I again feel like this is not a group that I want to go be the team that signs the biggest wide receiver contract. Like, I'm not going to go out there and try and outbid everyone for Juju Smith-Schuster or Jacoby Myers or whoever. Like, sure, but I don't know that they add a ton to what the Bears already have. And if there's not a wide receiver out there that I think is that go-to number one guy that I got to break the bank for, then I'm looking for value at that point. Why bother overspending on any of a group of guys that I don't feel like move the needle a ton from what I already have? Like, I don't think, for example, like Odell Beckham Jr. would probably want to come to the Bears just because he's kind of ring chasing at this point of his career, and the Bears, like as you say, are not right in that mix. So the guy I look at is DJ Chark from the Detroit Lions, who's been 1,000-yard receiver before with the Jacksonville Jaguars. We know he's got 4.3 speed, I think it was at the NFL scouting combine at 6'4". He was injured a little bit and had a down year last year to an extent. And so I think relative to some of the other guys, he's going to be cheaper. He's on a $10 million deal last year with the Lions and looking to get something perhaps similar this year. I'd rather pay him $10 million than Juju Smith-Schuster 15, 16, 17 million. I've seen even like Alan Lazard up in the 12, 13, 14 million dollar years. And I give me a guy like Chark that I think can come in at a cheaper price, but offer me just as much upside as some of these other free agent wide receivers, just for a lot less.
I have a name for you to consider. And I dug into him a little bit today, and it's a name that I didn't even factor as a viable possibility for the Bears because, like everyone else, kind of out of sight, out of mind. He hasn't made much of an impact with the Chiefs since he was drafted in 2019. That's Miko Hardman.
Yeah. Former
second-round pick. See, that's the reaction, right? That's the reaction people give when you mention it. But dive into his background. 4.33 guy, field flipping ability. And like, Lauren, who in their right mind, or you have to be a superstar talent to be able to leapfrog the pecking order there with Travis Kelce and Tyreek Hill throughout his first couple of years. And last year, sure, there's no Tyreek Hill, so the expectation was that Miko Hardman might evolve into a more consistent producer. He got hurt. He played 8 games. He didn't have a chance to really be unleashed, and it was a pretty serious injury. It was like a core injury where he needed surgery just a couple of weeks ago. And that could bring his market value down a little bit. And I mean, I'm an old school guy, Lauren. Speed, you can't just find it. You can't find 4.33 guys who can actually make plays just like walking the streets. And here's the other thing. Bears fans might be like, well, we already got that guy, a 4.3 something guy in Velus Jones. And it's true. And Velus Jones, I'm not out on Velus Jones yet. Like he's gonna develop into something. Miko Hardman's younger than Velus Jones. Velus Jones will be 26 next year. Miko Hardman's 24. Like there's a lot of these guys in this free agent crop to me that fit that ascending model of 24, 25, 26 years old. You get them in that range of their career. You sign them to a free agent contract in that range so that by the time the Bears are full steam ahead, you have a bunch of 27-year-old mature veteran players who are peaking during that time. So Miko Hardman's a guy, keep him on the back burner. What about tight end? Mike Gesicki, what do you think of him?
Yeah, I think I would love to see them invest at tight end just because it's a better value in your ROI there. That the tight end contract marketplace right now is still like even the best tight ends are a lot more affordable than the best wide receivers. And some of the best tight ends are producing like some of the best wide receivers at a much better price. So yeah, I mean, Gesicki for me, it would have to be the right price. But when I look at like a wide receiver, like if I'm looking at this wide receiver class and not really loving what I like, if we expand our definition from wide receiver to pass catcher, then absolutely go get more pass catchers for Justin Fields. And I think back to last year, how especially early on, we saw Luke Getsy try to roll with more 2 tight end sets with Cole Kmet and then Ryan Griffin, O'Shaughnessy, and Trevon Wesco. Like it seems to me there's an appetite here to get more than one tight end involved in this offense. And somebody like Mike Gesicki would be a great pass catching option for them, or even, the former Green Bay Packers tight end, Big Bob Tonyan, who Luke Getsy coached up in Green Bay, is a really affordable option that can just be a much better number 2 tight end than what the Bears have had the last couple of seasons. You don't have to break the bank at that spot with the top guy, but between them and Austin Hooper and some of the other options there, it feels like the Bears should try and come away with at least some kind of tight end upgrade. And maybe that means taking one in a really deep draft class this year as well.
And I think what Bears fans have to remember too is it's not like this is not an attack on Cole Kmet. No. This is not to suggest that the Bears aren't happy with Kmet and where he's going. Cole Kmet could be one of the highest paid tight ends in the league by the end of this offseason. The Bears have the money to extend him. They might do it. Gesicki wouldn't come in my opinion, to serve as a tight end. He would be at that position like the offensive weapon, more wide receiver than tight end. You're not going to ask him to do things that a traditional tight end would do. He's just going to go out and try to make plays as a receiver. So if you're looking at like, where can the Bears upgrade their receivers the most in this offseason? The guys catching passes from Justin Fields. Is it at wide receiver, or is like Mike Gesicki the top of the market guy? A 6'6" dude who can run in the 4.5s and make plays down the middle of the field and in the red zone. You're going to be hard-pressed finding a player that's going to make more plays than him. So, again, he's another one. Don't be surprised if the Bears make a strong push. Lauren, before I get you out of here, I have one more question for you. And I know Bears fans are going to be watching this player's, his movement with bated breath, and that's David Montgomery. First, what's your gut feeling, and the non-indigestion or agita feeling, but your actual gut feeling telling you about David Montgomery's future? Is it with Chicago, or is he as good as gone? And if David Montgomery leaves, do you think the Bears will be content with just Khalil Herbert and maybe a mid-round pick, Treston Ebner, Darrington Evans comes back? Or do you see them actually going after a guy like Miles Sanders or one of the top of the market running backs?
My gut says David Montgomery does not return to the Chicago Bears. I think with Barkley, Pollard, and
Josh
Jacobs all getting the franchise tag, David Montgomery becomes maybe the best free agent running back, or at the very least, it's him, Miles Sanders, and Jamal Williams in the top three in some order, and definitely establishes him as one of the better options out there with less supply, but the same amount of demand from other teams that might want running backs. I think it just drives his price up even a little bit farther. And we've heard Ryan Poles say, we would love to have David back if the numbers are right. To me, that says they're going to put a certain number and say, Montgomery, we'll offer you $8 million a year. And if you can go get more than that, best of luck to you, and we will wish you well. But if you want to come back at that number, we'll absolutely take you back at whatever number that might be. Eight is probably about the limit I would push for there. I think if he does walk, I wouldn't expect them to go after a big name running back in terms of Sanders or Williams, like one of the other two true top guys at the position. But I think another third down back pass catcher that can block and receive out of the backfield a bit better than Herbert. So you rush Herbert on first and second down. I think he can be a capable, I think he's got the skill to be 1,000-yard rusher, but just not a guy you're going to have in a lot of passing down situations. And then it's not a sexy name. We've talked about him a little bit before on the podcast, like a Jerick McKinnon or a Samaje Perine that doesn't get you fired up, but is good depth and good veteran experience there, that if you do draft another running back, that he can help mentor Ebner, the rookie, and even Khalil Herbert, who's still young.
Lauren, we're here, man. We made it. The off season is finally kicking off. Bears fans, can you feel it? Can you feel the excitement? You'll feel it every morning on the Locked On Bears podcast with Lauren Cox. Make sure you're following him at Cox Sports 1 on Twitter. Make sure you subscribe to his podcast, Locked On Bears. I listen to it every day. It's a great way to start your Chicago Bears day. A special thanks to Lauren Cox for coming on to talk all things Chicago Bears and free agency. Make sure you give him a follow on Twitter at Cox Sports 1 and follow his podcast, Locked On Bears. Hit the subscribe button, Bears Talkers. We're growing this show week by week, month by month, and it's all because of you, the faithful Bears fans who are coming back and taking in all the goodness that we offer here on Bears Talk. Go to bearstalk.com for all the news, notes, and analysis for your favorite team, the Chicago Bears. There's a lot of news coming soon, so make sure you have that website bookmarked. And as always, keep coming back to have some Bears Talk.